Eleanor Cross stood in the abandoned meat processing plant on the outskirts of Detroit, her 50-year-old hands steady as she arranged the photographs on the rusted metal table. 23 years. 23 years since they'd destroyed her life, and tonight, finally, she would have her revenge. The photographs showed 5 faces, younger than, arrogant smiles captured at a corporate party in 2002. They had been her colleagues at Apex Pharmaceuticals, the team she'd trusted with her groundbreaking research on pain management. But Marcus Chen, the lead among them, had stolen her formulas, buried her findings about the drug's fatal side effects, and pushed the medication to market anyway. When Eleanor tried to expose them, they'd framed her for data falsification and had her medical license revoked. Hundreds had died from the drug before it was finally pulled. Eleanor's daughter, Sarah, had been one of them, prescribed the very medication Eleanor had tried to stop, dead at 27 from cardiac arrest. Eleanor had spent 2 decades in obscurity, working menial jobs, watching from the shadows as the 5 conspirators thrived. Marcus became CEO, Jennifer Hartley, Chief of Operations, Robert Tusk, Director of Research, Amy Zhao and David Morrison, both Senior Vice Presidents. They'd built empires on stolen work and buried bodies. But Eleanor had been busy too. She'd continued her research in secret, in the basement of her tiny apartment in Ypsilanti. And she'd finally perfected it, a compound that didn't just cause pain. It awakened something far worse. The sound of footsteps echoed through the cavernous space. Eleanor smiled. The anonymous tips she'd sent had worked perfectly. One by one, they'd arrive, each believing they were meeting a blackmailer who had evidence of their crimes. Marcus entered first, his silver hair gleaming in the dim light from the industrial lamps Eleanor had strategically placed. He was 60 now, still handsome, still radiating that insufferable confidence. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. Eleanor stepped from the shadows. "Hello, Marcus." His face went pale. "Eleanor? But we thought you were dead, broken, gone?" Eleanor's voice was ice. "Not quite." Before he could respond, Jennifer stumbled in through the east entrance, followed moments later by Robert, Amy, and David from various other doors. Eleanor had locked them all from the outside. They were trapped now, all 5 of them, gathering in the center of the vast space like moths to a flame. "What is this?" Jennifer demanded, though fear crept into her eyes when she saw Eleanor. "This is justice," Eleanor said calmly. She pulled out a remote control and pressed a button. Hidden speakers crackled to life, playing a recording, their voices from 23 years ago, discussing how to bury Eleanor's findings, how to discredit her, how much money they'd make if the drug went to market despite its lethal flaws. "We all have regrets," Marcus said, finding his composure. "But this is ancient history. What do you want? Money?" Eleanor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "I want you to feel what they felt, what Sarah felt." She opened her palm, revealing 5 tiny devices, each attached to a photograph of one of her victims. With her other hand, she pressed a button on each device. The transformation was immediate and horrifying. They began to scream. Eleanor's compound worked on the nervous system, but not in any conventional way. It opened doors in the mind that should remain closed. It made the barrier between thought and sensation dissolve. Every person the drug had killed, their final moments of agony, their terror, their desperate gasps for breath, all of it flooded into the 5 conspirators' minds simultaneously. Marcus clawed at his chest, feeling phantom heart attacks ripple through him again and again. Jennifer collapsed, choking on air, experiencing 100 different respiratory failures at once. Robert's body convulsed with seizures that weren't physically happening but felt absolutely real in his rewired brain. Eleanor watched with cold satisfaction. The compound would wear off in an hour, leaving them alive but fundamentally changed. They would spend the rest of their lives haunted by what they'd experienced. The deaths they'd caused playing on an endless loop in their minds whenever they tried to sleep. "This is for Sarah," Eleanor whispered, "and for all the others you murdered for profit." As their screams echoed through the abandoned plant, Eleanor pulled out her phone. She'd already sent all the evidence, the recordings, the documents, the proof of their crimes. to the FBI, the FDA, and every major news outlet in the country. By morning, their empires would crumble. She walked toward the exit, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. Behind her, the 5 former executives writhed in their psychological torment, experiencing every death they'd caused. Eleanor paused at the door and looked back one final time. In the harsh light of the industrial lamps, surrounded by shadows and their own screaming, they looked like souls already in hell. "Goodbye, Marcus," she said softly. "See you in your nightmares." She stepped out into the cold Detroit night, leaving the doors unlocked for the police she'd anonymously called. They would find 5 broken people babbling about visions and death, with all the evidence of their decades-old crimes conveniently documented. Eleanor Cross drove away into the darkness, finally at peace. Her revenge was complete, not through death, but through something far worse. A lifetime of haunting, of never escaping the consequences of their greed. Sometimes, she thought as she disappeared into the night, the best revenge isn't killing your enemies, it's making them live with what they've done.